Hi, everyone. It's the most wonderful night of the month. We got Angelique Charles and Cara Cruz speaking and Pattie Cornute. It's the most wonderful night of the month. You never know what Siouxie Boshoff will say, and Jenny Beaujean is all ready to play. Our special guest is Sonya Louise. She'll help you manage the mental part of your chronic disease. Well, you can all be glad to know that I will not be singing anymore tonight, but if you're all really good and you're on the nice list, our beloved Angelique Charles just might sing for us. Fingers crossed. Merry Christmas, everyone. Merry everything. Whatever you celebrate, we are celebrating you tonight. This is the December Lipedema Patient Roundtable. Chat it up, everybody. We want to hear you're out there. We want to welcome you to a warm and toasty night, no matter even if it's cold outside for you. There's so much going on in our worlds, but I do want to introduce you to our special guest, Sonya Louise. She helps women with chronic illness achieve their goals. And when we were talking before we went live, you were talking about how, well, why don't you say it in your own words, how we sometimes can think, are our best days behind us?
Yeah, that's what I hear most frequently from the women that I work with, is this idea that I've spent so much time, first of all, trying to get the proper diagnosis. A lot of women with chronic illness, just our bodies start doing things that are unexpected, and it can take time to get a diagnosis. Then you can spend years learning how to manage your symptoms and just kind of what new normal is. And then women hit a stage, especially like high potential, high performing women, where we still feel an impulse to make an impact and to have influence in the world. We want to make a difference. We want to know that we have something of value to contribute. But given the limitations of our conditions, we start to wonder, like, is that even possible anymore? And do I just have to resign myself to this idea that my best days are behind me and just feel the frustration of a heart that still beats with passion, but a body that can't keep up with it?
And so what are some of the tools that you use to help people embrace this new normal and live their best life?
Well, one of my favorite techniques, and I guess we're just diving right in, right? I call it writing the impulse of life. And one of the things that we are conditioned to do in our culture is to this, what I call push energy. You know, I have a goal, I have a strategy to reach that goal, and then I'm pushing myself, I'm pushing against the environment, I'm pushing against anything that could hinder me from getting that goal. And that often exacerbates our symptoms. It takes a toll on the nervous system and kind of takes us out. And so it's like maximum effort for minimal achievement. So I like to teach a principle that I call writing the impulse of life. And there's a lot behind this, but I'm going to make it as simple as possible, and then I'm happy to answer questions. But essentially, like, I believe that we're all encoded with Aristotle called it the entelechy. Like I'm encoded with certain gifts, talents, like I'm here for a purpose, to make a contribution. And when I listen deeply to my body and to my heart, I can feel an impulse, what I call the impulse of life. It can feel like inspiration. It can feel like I feel a sense of passion. It can feel like I just don't know why I have to do this thing. Like, I just feel like I have to do this thing, right? And so by tuning into that and listening deeply to the wisdom that's encoded in our body and in our heart, we can learn how to ride that impulse of life so that the impulse itself is the propulsion behind the action that we're taking. I liken to it this way. So I went to the beach one day, and the beach gave me this beautiful analogy. I had a boogie board and the beach was flat. So here I am ready to, ride my boogie board, and the beach is flat. And I was like, well, this is going to be really difficult. I could have put my boogie board down into the water and paddled my way around. And that's how we typically approach our goals or our task list, the things I have to do any day. Here I am with my boogie board, I'm putting it in the water, and I'm paddling around to where I need to go. That's how we typically approach life. But riding the impulse of life is more like, I'm here with my boogie board. I'm imagining what I'm here to do. I'm imagining why I'm here to do it, why I care about it, what it means, why it means so much to me. And I'm waiting for the wave. I'm waiting for the wave to come. And when the wave comes, if I time it just right, I can put my boogie board down and I can ride that wave. Very little effort on my part, but huge accomplishment. So it's a matter of like tuning in to like that wisdom in the body, doing things within our minds in terms of like tuning into the vision, tuning into the passion, like learning how to amplify that, tuning into the gratitude, understanding what I am about today, and then allowing that to kind of like effervescently rise up in me. And then that it's almost at that point, like I can't not move, like it's moving me forward. And so I'm able to do a lot with very little effort because I'm being buoyed by the impulse itself. Is that making any sense?
It's
Yeah.
making
Okay, great.
sense. Siouxsie, I see you saying, I love this, and nodding. What's speaking to you about this?
I mean, I always like, I think that's where you find joy in your life, whatever that is. And then I think we have people in our lives and situations that make us ignore those voices or those impulses or disregard them or decide that they're not really us. And it's cheating the world of something really beautiful and important, in my opinion.
I fell in love with a song that came out ages ago, but it spoke to me. And it's by Modest Mouse, and it's about floating on. And I realized that a lot of my life I have spent fighting instead of floating. And I want more floating. In fact, that is my resolution. I'm going to ask everybody what their resolutions are this year, but we just had a superstar pop on the screen. Dr. Karen Herbst, how are you tonight?
I'm good. I love your hat.
Thank you. Well, we're feeling very festive. We have a special guest. Sonya Louise was talking to us about the impulse inside of us. And when we follow that, instead of trying to make stuff happen, things happen more with ease. She works with women who have chronic illnesses to help them be high achievers. And our life's purpose is so in us. And when I think of your life purpose, Dr. Herbst, you were fascinated with fat from an early age, and it drove you and led you into your purpose.
Absolutely true.
I mean, Pattie Cornute, how did you end up where you are? We got pain and it led to our purpose, but I didn't mean to interrupt you. Go ahead, Dr. Herbst.
I was just going to say that I think a lot of the women here with lipedema who are on all have a purpose, right? And it's probably a variety of things. We all have more than one purpose in life. And, learning about lipedema and figuring out all that we can do to make it better is one thing, but there are so many talented women on here. It's incredible. And I have found that women with lipedema are some of the most talented women that I know.
And sensitive and kind. So everybody out there, are you hearing this tonight? We're loving all over you because you're amazing. We would not be here without you. And it's such a privilege to be community with you. Pattie Cornute, you had shot me some questions that you had hoped Dr. Herbst would be here to answer. So you're on the spot, Dr. Herbst. You knew you would be. Pattie, go for it. And by the way, if any in our audience have a question for any of our panelists, please put them in the Q&A. We are here to serve you tonight. Pattie, take it away.
So I had asked my group if they had any questions for tonight, and I got two really good ones. and one was about hair loss here and lipedema. And I happened to do like a quick search, and I found the word lipedematosis scalp. And I was like, what is that? And it was like a thickening of the connective tissue in the head, which causes the hair loss. But I couldn't believe how similar it was in the name. It had lipedema right in there. And it was diagnosed in 1935, and lipedema was diagnosed in 1940. And I'm like, was that maybe what they were kind of classifying, a thicker connective tissue?
That is, I saw that question and I was like, these questions are getting harder and harder. These women are getting smarter and smarter. So there is something called lipedema of the scalp, and it can occur in women. And I don't know if they have lipedema as well, because most of the people that are looking at it aren't looking at the body, only looking at the scalp, which is unfortunate. But I have seen thickening of the scalp in women with lipedema, usually women who have stage 3. But I had a young lady today, she was stage 1, she's 17 years of age, and she had lipedema of the scalp. So the question is, where can you get lipedema on the body? And we were at the Potsdam lipedema meeting in October, and Dr. Sinti, who is a pathologist, I believe is a pathologist, presented some data on electron microscopy of lipedema tissue. And they compared lipedema tissue from the thigh to that of the upper back. So, I mean, there's like nothing on the upper back, right? And they found some of the same changes in the thighs they did on the upper back. So what he concluded was lipedema is a systemic disease. So it can affect fat tissue anywhere on the body, and that makes perfect sense. And some women have said like they have lipedema right here under the chin. And there are so many people who will poo-poo that, but it just it makes sense to me that lipedema is a systemic disease. Gravity plays a role in where it presents itself more often. I don't know why it would just grow on the scalp, but I do believe that it would affect hair growth. And a lot of women, when they come in, I see that they're missing a lot of hair. And even if they don't say it, a lot of them do say it, but some of them don't say it. And it's an area that I think deserves a lot more research.
Yeah. Every time I go to my hairdresser, she's like, Brenda, it's also a part of what tends to happen as we age. So it doesn't necessarily have to connect the dots with lipedema, does it? It's just.
I think that there is a component of where lipedema does affect the scalp, but only in certain type of women with lipedema. And for example, we usually say lipedema doesn't affect the hands or the feet, right? Well, in 30% of the women, they can have increased fat tissue on the hand. And we actually published that data. And Steve Dean read that paper and he's like, yeah, I see that too. So it's not just my group that published it, but other people are noticing it too. So what makes it grow on the hand? What makes it different there? And what I think is that there's fibers that, when you have hypermobile joints, they're looser. And when they're looser, they allow more, fluid to get in there and cells migrate in there and then fat grows. Same thing could be happening on the head. I just don't know why.
Thank you so much for that answer. And Pale Ginger Pear, you were like, hey, I want to say something.
So, I have a ton of hair. I've always had a ton of hair. However,
We're all jealous too.
I have noticed since surgery, especially since this last one, it has gotten healthier with each surgery. It's not breaking as much. I'm not shedding as much. Because I used to shed like crazy. Like the one ex from years and years ago was like, we've been broke up for like months and I'm still finding your red hair in my apartment. And I'm like, serves you right. But I am not shedding nearly as much as I was before. And even when I went just last month and had like the haircut done, my hairdresser was like, your hair is healthier. Because I was afraid she was going to want to chop it. And I was like, no. And she was like, no. She's like, whatever you're doing is working. She's like, you only really need to trim. It's gotten so much healthier. And so I think that even if there's not necessarily lipedema on the scalp, I think just our body holding in all those toxins, your body can't function properly and it has to take it out somewhere. But since surgery, my hair is healthier on my head and it grows on my legs like crazy, which I hate. I was happy when I had no leg hair. Now it's like a Yeti and I don't like it. But
that's just conjured up quite a visual there for me. Thank you, PGP. But
you're welcome.
wow. So interesting. Someone was saying, would compression in the head and neck help the hair issue? Or is it so perhaps?
I think so. I think there's stagnation. And when there's stagnation, the poor little hair follicles drown and then they die off. So I think, massaging the scalp, vibrating the scalp, anything that you can do to move things on the scalp.
That's good. That's great. It's not like you have to go out and buy something expensive. You can just do this yourself and there you have it.
Or red light therapy. Red light therapy would be another one.
Red light therapy. Sure. Go ahead, Jenny.
So here's the thing. How do you differentiate between normal average Joe hair loss and what might be related to lipedema? So how would it feel? Because I have hair loss, but so do all my other friends in their mid-60s. It's aging, it's normal. It's nothing that I ever affiliated, and I don't seem to have a thickened scalp or anything like that. So how would you classify it from normal to that? And Cara, I will say when I went through complete decongestive therapy on my legs, my hair started growing after I lost that excess fluid in my legs and so I'm right there with you.
So I think, for lipedema, the scalp is a spongy scalp and it's definitely thickened and you can tell, and you just touch it and you can just feel that it's softer. The only way to tell if it's normal hair loss versus a scarring type of alopecia hair loss would be a biopsy.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, and who wants a biopsy of their head?
Gotcha. Okay. So, or you could just wear your Santa hat year round, but I don't recommend that for anybody. We've got a few questions about pain, and then Pattie, I know you have another question that's really important for everybody too about progression. But 3 questions came in about pain, and let's just get to them right away. By the way, Nita Shermer, I think that's a new name in our attendee list. We love new names. Welcome. Lots of love to you. We're here to support you. This is awesome. She has been diagnosed with stage 1 lipedema, and she struggles with the chronic pain. Her vascular doctor finds it very strange because he says he sees patients with stage 4 and they don't complain as badly as she does about the pain. Now, everybody's going to collectively nod their heads. Is anyone familiar with underlying causes to these lipedema pain levels? You are not crazy, Nina Shermer. That pain may not be considered an ouch pain. It could be this aching in your limbs as well that is very much associated with lipedema. The causes of the pain, Dr. Herbst, could you speak to that?
So one of the causes for pain and lipedema would be mast cell issues. So especially when you're stressed out, stress directly activates your mast cells. So in comes the stress, your hypothalamus produces corticotropin releasing hormone that goes to mast cells and turns them on. And then they generate inflammation in the body. So anywhere where you have mast cells sitting around, they're going to generate pain. Mast cells are considered the gateway to pain. So that's one way. Another way you can get pain is like compartment syndrome, which we've talked about on some of the Lympha Press webinars, where the fat grows around the veins and the vein compartments. You can also, and then it puts pressure on, not only on the vein, but on the lymphatic system and nerves. And you can also get inflammation of the connective tissue, right? If you look at our standard of care paper, Dr. Jamie Schwartz gave us a picture where he opened up the tissue and you can see these fibers in the lipedema tissue and they're very thick. you can get thickening of fibers anywhere in the body due to inflammation. So basically, this is something that I've been thinking about for a long time. I'm just gonna say it, that
Ooh.
that I think that lipedema really starts and progresses as a fasciitis. So you know how you have plantar fasciitis under your foot? There's so many women that have come to me in the past like 6 months saying, you know, really started on my IT band. First, my IT band really started to hurt, and I have these little nodules on my IT band, and it spread everywhere. So I think lipedema is a chronic fasciitis.
And you heard it here first at the Lipedema Patient Roundtable.
Right.
I love, and we, you know, these are the kind of electric moments that we're so grateful to be connected. Dr. Karen Herbst is the Chief Medical Officer for Lympha Press. By the way, any of you new names out there, if you're not familiar with Lympha Press, we would love to work with you and to help you. Several of the people who are our anchor panelists use their Lympha Press regularly to help them manage their condition. It does help to reduce pain and increase mobility. So, yep, that's my little plug for Lympha Press. But hey, they sponsor us every month, and I'm happy to do it because I believe in it. So, pain, Holly Hope. Holly Hope, you have the perfect holiday name. We just love it. She recently started low-dose naltrexone, LDN, to deal with chronic pain. She said it made a difference not just to her lipedema, but inflammation and several inflammatory conditions. Are there any others here who use LDN? And what do you think about it, Dr. Herbst?
I did not really think that low-dose naltrexone would really work. And I have women who they're in severe pain, and I'm thinking, you're going to take a micro dose of a medication and that's going to help your pain. Okay, I'll give it to you. Let's see how this goes. And sure enough, it helped with their pain. And it works through the opioid system, but it's not really an opioid. It's an opioid antagonist. I'm not exactly sure how it helps with pain, but just time after time after time, it does help. And it does so not only through the opioid nerves and receptors, but it also is an anti-inflammatory. Perfect for lipedema. And can I just say something else about the fascia? Fasciitis. So fascia has 6 to 7 times the number of pain receptors that muscle does. And so if you're going to have pain in your body, it's probably going to be in your fascia. And imagine you have a fasciitis around your muscle in your calf, right? And it starts to go like this. And so you get more cramping. And I need to start asking people more about cramping. Like, how many of you have cramping in your legs? How many of you feel like little fasciculations or little crawling bugs or little movements that are just kind of not normal? I think that, and I see the hands, and thank you so much. I think that's probably due to compartment syndrome around the muscle. And we're looking at our SOZO data, which is, you know, your bioimpedance that tells you how much muscle you have, how much fat, how much fluid. And women with lipedema have less muscle. They have a sarcopenia. And we got to fight that. How do you fight that when your fascia is contracted around your muscle? So we got to figure something out. That's why muscle massagers are good. That's why, you know, hands-on therapy that you know, lengthens the fascia so your muscle can actually contract. That's why weightlifting really works. Thank you, Pattie Cornute.
There you go. There you go. And that's a perfect segue for me to go back to Pattie. Susie, did you want to say something? Because sometimes when you do this, I think, or else you're just doing your Home Alone impression. Gotcha. Okay, we can all do that. Pattie got a question about progression from one of the people in her group, and you can say it way better than I can. Go for it, Pattie.
Yeah, so the first person who commented was saying that, how do you know when and if you're progressing? Because her elbow had been hurting for a while and she started feeling nodules on her hand. And then the other person who in her own group posted that she noticed she had a flare and her skin texture started to get irritated and she was growing a fat pad on her ankle. And it's just like, they're like, how do you know when and if that's what's happening. Like I notice when inflammation gets heightened and that symptom kind of gets, but as far as like the nodules growing, multiplying, getting bigger, it kind of seems like it has to really be noticeable before you notice, you know?
I think that's a very great and complex question. And it kind of brings us back to what's normal fat and what's lipedema fat and how do you tell the difference between it? And boy, would somebody really like to figure that one out. But let's take my theory that lipedema is a fasciitis, right? Fasciitis can spread. We are looking at I wish we had a poster of the fascia of the body. And there's a piece of fascia that comes under the foot and then around the backside, and then it goes up. So you can't tell me that just a plantar fasciitis stays right there and it doesn't spread. It can spread throughout the body. And whenever you have inflammation, you form you form nodules, you form lumps, that's swelling. That's the definition of inflammation. And fat is right next to the fascia. Fat has, you know, the superficial fascia, the deep fascia. It's got fascia around what they call fat pearls, fat lobules. There's fascia everywhere. And that just all becomes inflamed. And what Dr. Sinti found was that each and every, this is amazing. This blew my mind. Each and every fat cell had calcium around it. Each and every fat cell. And so if you have calcium around a fat cell, it's not getting messages in and it's not sending messages out. It is no longer responsive to the normal cues of metabolism in the body. And that's really bad inflammation. And he also found just some very strange data of like there are big holes in fat cells, like breaks in the fat cells. And he also found problems in the blood vessels. And blood vessels also are made of connective tissue. So I would say, to answer your question, how do you tell if your lipedema is progressing? If you start feeling nodules in another location, I think you can say, yeah, I'm becoming more inflamed in a new location. That's not good. And why is that happening? You know, are you having stress? Did your veins create more inflammation in your body? Did you have COVID? Did you fall down? Did you have a surgery? Did you take a new medication? I mean, there's so many things that can generate that inflammation. And allergies, anything that generates inflammation can make lipedema progress. That's why keeping inflammation down is the most important thing. And that's what you're battling.
Mm-hmm. You did a great webinar about inflammation too, and it had this really catchy title, Dr. Herbst, and everything lives. By the way, we're getting a lot of chat. Is this going to be recorded? Because I want to see it again. Absolutely. These are all recorded. They live on the Lympha Press YouTube channel. They live on the Lympha Press website. And everybody who registers gets a link to the replay. Other questions that have come in asking privately, I have nobody that can help me where I live. We can find you help. If you email marketing@lymphapress.com, our reps are connected with everybody that takes care of both lymphedema and lipedema, and we will connect the dots and get you the help you need. You do not need to go through this alone. That's part of the reason for the roundtable. We don't want you to feel alone in this journey, and we will advocate for you to get the help you need. Pale Ginger Pear, you were going to say something.
Yeah, I just had a question for Dr. Herbst because you mentioned allergies. I have some severe allergies. I'm basically allergic to every plant in the area I live, and cats and dogs, which we have. And I have started allergy shots. Is that a bad thing to get shots that could be causing some inflammation to fight against the allergies long term, or should I just deal with allergies?
I think it's a good idea to get your allergies under control. And
Okay.
allergies are a sign that your mast cells are overactivated.
Oh, yeah.
And so, you know, you're doing the right thing by fighting them. And
Okay.
they do now have drops that you can put it under your tongue. And I think a lot of allergists are moving away from the shots and moving more towards under the tongue. So you might want to get a second opinion or ask
Okay.
about that, because you're right. Anytime you stab a needle into the tissue, whether you're getting a blood draw or a biopsy, it impacts your connective tissue. And
Or a new tattoo.
or new tattoo. And your immune cells have memories. They're called T helper cells. And they remember, like, oh, whenever I get stabbed, we get inflammation, and they, you know, set everything off. And part of what they set off are the mast cells, which live right under the skin.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. Go ahead, Angelique. You are muted right now. There you go.
I have a question. I see some chatter in the group chat tonight about gabapentin for pain, and that is the one that I've been on for many, many years. But I'm hearing that they're saying that it's a no for us. Do you have information on that, Dr. Herbst?
Some people who take gabapentin, especially in very high doses, like 600, 1200, they can swell. That's the downside to gabapentin. And taken in smaller doses, it can be very well tolerated and does help with pain and sleep. So, and it's really specific to each person. One person can take it and say, well, I do just fine with it. And then somebody else takes it and they swell. So everybody's different. Everyone has different genes. Everyone has different epigenetics. You just have to really think for yourself, start at a low dose and go up as tolerated.
What are good alternatives for gabapentin? Because the majority of us that are on gabapentin have, you know, severe nerve pain. And I'm taking that in addition to marijuana in order to get off of, I'm sorry for that, but you know,
It's legal.
It's legal in some states.
No,
But that is what I use to regulate my pain instead of the other narcotic medications that I was on. I was on morphine and Oxycontin at the same time, you know. So in order to get off of that, I was trying to go to more natural remedies. Gabapentin I've hated from the beginning, but every time I try to get off of it, my nerve pain is excruciating. So what are our alternatives?
There's not a lot of alternatives for nerve pain. And I'm not I'm by no means an expert on nerve pain or the medications that you could immediately switch to and everything would be fine. And I think if you're tolerating it okay, and I mean, pain is a terrible thing to have and to live with. And so if you're tolerating it okay and your doctor still thinks it's okay, then I would definitely be okay with you on gabapentin. But you could go on to some of the antidepressants. They can cause weight gain, so can gabapentin. And you might develop weight gain on a different antidepressant compared to gabapentin. You can go on an anti-seizure medication for nerve pain as well. So there is a variety. There are lists that you can look at of medications for nerve pain that do not cause weight gain. And I can't rattle them off on the top of my head, but that's what I would do is do a little bit more research into that, but also talk to your doctor. They should help you with that, especially a pain specialist.
And speaking of pain, I'm going to give you a break, Dr. Herbst, so you can take a drink of water, maybe look at some of the questions in the Q&A, because I want to go back to our other guest. Sonya Louise is with Dreamscapes Healing Arts, and you work with women who have chronic illnesses all day long. You help them get their head. It's kind of funny taking me seriously in this hat, but bear with me, everybody. When you're dealing with someone who is a client and they are in constant pain, are there any tools or advice that you offer from a mental standpoint to help them manage and navigate this?
I do. And it's hard for me to talk to anonymous people because it's hard for me to navigate that minefield. When I'm one-to-one with a woman and we've developed a container of safety and trust, I find it easier to approach this topic. So I'm just going to apologize in advance if I touch on anything that triggers anyone, because what I want to share is best shared personally. But
By the way, let me just add this caveat. This is your first visit to the roundtable. One of the things I always say is we're not dispensing any medical advice to anybody, but we are speaking in broad brush terms. And the truth is there are some general, just to even know that there's someone out there that specializes in coaching women who are trying to live their best life with a chronic illness, you know? So if there is nothing generically that can be said, or perhaps if you want to share in your own life, something that has worked.
Yeah, I will, but I always just like to put that caveat out there too, because I understand what's happening in our bodies is the most intimate thing that we can experience, right? And so for women who have tried a lot of things and have found a lot of things not working, it can be really sensitive to feel like I'm giving, you know, broad strokes. But what has worked for me has been finding something that doesn't hurt to place my awareness on. So when I had I had acute COVID, which turned into long COVID. When I had acute COVID and was dealing with pain and inflammation throughout my body, a common practice for me in dealing with my chronic condition is to scan the body and find what feels good and invite my awareness to dwell on what's feeling good. Because when the pain receptors are activated and all you can think about is what feels bad, you place your awareness on what feels bad, and it amplifies, because our attention, our awareness amplifies where we place it. And so in order to give my attention, my awareness, my mind something else besides the pain or the discomfort to think about, I'll scan my body and find something that feels good. And so I remember laying in bed. I had been in bed for 2 weeks and I had been in pain, and I was constantly scanning my body, trying to find a place that didn't hurt. And at one point I noticed that my toes didn't hurt. And I remember I remember being like overjoyed at the fact that my toes didn't hurt. And so I just invited my awareness to dwell on my toes and to just like feel how good my toes felt. And every time pain tried to call my attention to the areas of my body that were hurting, I would acknowledge, I understand that you're in pain. I'm sorry that you're in pain. And I would like embrace that part, and then invite my awareness to go back to a place in my body that felt good. And as I could maintain the awareness on the place that felt good for longer and longer stretches of time, then I could feel a sense of gratitude for a small relief in the pain. And then that actually amplified, and I was able to find kind of like a pocket of relief that I could dwell in. So that's just kind of like an in the moment tool that I've used. And then once you kind of like learn that discipline, you can start to expand it in a lot of other ways. You realize that how powerful your mind is, and that you're not helpless when it comes to those things. Because that's one of the things that happens, right? When our bodies are just like ransacked by something that we can't control, and that medicine doesn't always have the answers for us either. So you start to feel helpless and powerless. So even just that one little practice of, I can find some place in my body that isn't in pain, I can allow my awareness to dwell in that place, and I can find pockets of relief. What else might I have the power to do? Like, how might I expand this practice to other meaningful areas of my life?
That's so well said, and it's resonating with the audience. Thank you, Sonya, for your very sensitive answer to a very broad question. And I think that's something that we can all apply. So I appreciate that. Sonya Louise is with Dreamscapes Healing Arts, and she is an expert dealing with particularly women with chronic illness. There is a question that came in the Q&A, and it sort of tugged at my heart, and I'd love everybody to weigh in on it. Danielle Dittenhofer, I've never seen your name in the audience before, and we want to welcome you. We want to give you heart bows and say thank you for showing up tonight. We want to show up for you. She just was told today that she has stage 1 lipedema, just found out about it. She's feeling and thinking so many different things. Any recommendations on what to do next? And Dr. Herbst replied in the chat, read the standard of care for lipedema in the United States. Absolutely. That is posted on the Lympha Press website. It's open source. You can just Google standard of care for lipedema in the US, or I bet Casey Grosvenor is putting it in chat right now. And we shout out you, Casey and Nita and all of our regulars. You're the best. But I'd love to ask our panelists just one thing. If you had just found out today that you have lipedema, and of course you're excused guests, but what would you recommend? And Jenny, I'm going to go to you first.
Thank you. I'm glad you did, because I only learned about this a few years ago when I was 59. And the first thing I ended up starting to do was read everything. And the US standard of care wasn't out yet. And quite honestly, I talk about that all the time to folks because it's such a great overview of what it is, what are all the different conservative treatments. But then after you do all this reading and you listen to everybody and you get involved in all the social media, you really have to slow down and start with one thing. Start with just one change. So only giving one, that's two, but.
No, that's good. What about you, Pale Ginger Pear? What would you recommend? You just found out.
I think a good key thing for me when I found out was allow myself to grieve how much people didn't believe me for years, and to embrace the fact that I wasn't crazy. I was right. I knew something was wrong with my body. I wasn't lazy. I wasn't an overeater. I wasn't all this negative stuff that people try to put on me for years. And just allow myself to be sad, pissed off, whatever mood went with that at that moment of thinking about it. And then move on and start the okay, now we can tackle this because I was right attitude, and just kind of go from there. But it's okay to be upset that nobody believed you for the longest time.
Yeah, that's such an important point. Thank you, PGP. I love everything you share. And by the way, if you're one of the 2 people in the world not following PGP on Instagram, she posts some beautiful poetry, and I'm going to throw to you later for that. But Angelique, what would you say to someone who just found out?
Well, I don't know how long she has been feeling like that. Like Cara says, how long she's gone through that journey of trying to explain to people that you've had this condition and nobody actually believing you or understanding or anything like that. But my immediate feeling was feeling alone. Like I had felt alone for so long with nobody understanding me. And one of the greatest benefits that came about through this journey is finding community. And there's a lot of Facebook groups out there that are supportive, that share good information, and that are caring and loving. And my biggest thing would be to know that you're not alone and immerse yourself into the lipedema community and find your tribe, your people. And we are here. We are your people now. So welcome.
Well, I love that. And it is true. You find a safe place here. We don't allow anything. Our one ground rule is only love. Only love shows up at the Lipedema Roundtable, and there's great love for you and appreciation. Siouxsie, looking in your crystal ball, but you've got a lifetime of experience and you've learned a lot of things. What would you tell someone from your framework of experience? She just found out she has lipedema.
I mean, I remember the day that Dr. Herbst told me I had lipedema, and I was like, what is that? And then my husband, I started Googling it, and my husband was like, how are you on the internet? Why are your legs on the internet? And I was like, no, this is what I have. This is why I look like this. You're not alone. And there are things that you can do, but the most important thing that you have that I didn't have as much of is when I found out, it was 11 years ago, and they didn't have the community and the knowledge that we now have. So surround yourself with other people, the positive ones, because there's also people that are really sad about it all the time, and that's okay. And it's okay to grieve about it, but you can't live there. If you live there, you're never going to find the joy that you actually are capable of living. And we have an amazing community that will help you through the parts that feel hopeless, because it isn't hopeless. So that's what I would say to my old self.
Thank you, Susie. I love that. Pattie?
I'm going to say bravo, because finding out today and you're on this live roundtable, you've struck gold, because you can connect with lots of people in the chat. You can connect with any of us here. You have amazing Dr. Herbst here answering questions. And the other thing I would say is I found a certified lymphedema therapist was golden for me, because I could be there. She was the person who diagnosed me. She helped me with manual lymphatic drainage. She helped me with compression. She had a plan for me. And just having somebody like that, I still don't have a doctor in my area who knows what lipedema is, but physical therapist, certified lymphedema therapist especially, golden.
Yeah, it's so true. Okay, so we are literally rounding the final quarter, the final lap. How can it be? It goes by so fast every month. And I just want to soak up all the love and give it too. We've got some more medical questions, Dr. Herbst, I'm going to throw at you before I go to Pale Ginger Pear and her recent beautiful post on Instagram and our song with Angelique, and also final words. If Sonya, you have any final words for everyone, but we're not there yet because medical stuff. PRP injections. Andrea Price wants to know if you've had any experience with this. One was for her arthritic chronic sprained ankle, the other for hair loss on the top of her head. Is there a connection with lipedema? And any thoughts about PRP injections, Dr. Herbst?
So PRP injections can be very, very painful, and they can actually activate your mast cells. So what they do is they basically generate inflammation. So if they're generating inflammation and they've been injected in a joint, you've got fascia right there, you've got fat right there. So yes, it can create these little nodules that feel like lipedema tissue. It can result in fibrosis. Sometimes you need to do it though, because you need to, you could get a steroid injection, which would reduce the inflammation, but that also weakens tissue. So sometimes you have to take the chance at PRP, but I will warn you, it can be one of the most painful things that you experience. It can generate an allergic reaction on the skin for months at a time, but eventually it should help reduce the pain in that joint that you have. It's just, there's some risks associated with it. And let's say you have a lot of inflammation in a particular area nearby, it could actually activate that nearby inflammation. So now you've got inflammation and pain where you've had the PRP injection, and now the area nearby is becoming more inflamed. So you just have to be prepared to do all the things that you need to do to reduce inflammation. And one of the things they say to not do after PRP is use cold. Why? Because cold reduces inflammation, and you want to become inflamed in order for that PRP to work.
Thank you for that answer, Dr. Herbst. A quick question from Nita Shermer. Do you know if lipedema is always genetic?
No, lipedema is not always genetic. They say 60% of the time it is, but it's not always genetic.
And our dear friend Amanda Hadaway asks, so is bioidentical progesterone recommended? She's been on low dose for a while and feels better, but feels like she would feel better with more. Now, again, we're not giving any specific guidance to you, Amanda, but any general thoughts, Dr. Herbst?
So I think if you're going to start hormones because you're having a lot of symptoms in menopause, you definitely want to work with someone who's going to measure your hormone levels. And so if your healthcare provider is monitoring how much estrogen you're taking and making sure you're not going too high or you're still not too low, and monitoring your progesterone to make sure it's within normal limits, and normal limits for you, which might be slightly different than the normal limits for the test, then I think that's a much better idea than somebody giving you hormone replacement therapy and going, here it is, see you later.
Mm-hmm.
Which is what they often do with women, which is really interesting, because if they give men testosterone, they monitor them very closely until they get it right. So I do think working with a bioidentical hormone specialist is a good idea if you are going to start hormone replacement therapy, and you definitely want to make sure you don't go too high or remain too low. So I think it's really individual. Someone's going to take hormone replacement therapy and have a bad experience, and someone else is going to take it and have a good experience. And we don't have really good studies on hormone replacement therapy in women with lipedema, which is unfortunate.
Yeah, you've already answered a question that just came in. Are there studies about hormonal levels and estrogen in women with lipedema? But here's the beautiful thing. We want to always give you hope. There are people like Dr. Herbst on the case. They will not stop until they get answers, and they are committed. One of the things I absolutely love about you, Dr. Herbst, is you are a clinical, brilliant person, but you have a heart for this patient population. And for that, we can't thank you enough.
Can I make a point for Lympha Press real quick? So I just have to say, I was just, before we got on this call, I was on a call with Eric Amzart, who's the CEO of Lympha Press. And Lympha Press actually sponsored a research study on women with lipedema. And the amount of data that they've collected is Susie, is like this. It's incredible. And a lot of it is asking questions about, what kind of hormones did you use, and how long did you use them, and when did you use them? What type did you use? And so maybe we'll get a few of those answers from that study, but it's incredible. And it was actually under the guidance of Dr. Lindy McCutcheon, who's an OB-GYN who also does vein treatments.
And who we adore as well. Thank you for mentioning that. Lympha Press truly cares about the lipedema population, funding a study and also supporting this roundtable every month and giving this platform of support, because we know it's not just physical, it's mental. Speaking of that, Sonya, you are a coach to people. People are asking where they can find you. It's Dreamscape Healing Arts, based in Vero Beach, Florida. Any final words that you would offer to our attendees tonight?
I guess this has to do with when we have a chronic condition, it's very good at sifting and sorting the things that don't matter and allowing us to give our time, attention, and talent to the things that really do matter. And for me, I consider that a gift. And one of the greatest gifts of dealing with my chronic condition has been there's no drama around what I can't do, because it really allows me to focus on what I can do. And when I don't scatter my attention, but I direct it very purposefully, I can make an impact. And I believe the same is true with all of you.
Wonderful words of life. Thank you. I'm so glad I met you, and I'm so glad that you were our guest tonight. PGP, would you read for us?
Okay, so the little bit of the backstory real quick about this is I was in a creative rut. I signed up for a glitter bath photo shoot and I'm still finding glitter everywhere. But I did a boudoir shoot, and I specifically said to her, I don't want any retouching, and I have lipedema, and it causes different things like the dents, the melting when you sit. And she respected what I asked for and captured it, didn't edit anything. And I was shocked at how happy I looked in the photos. Because if you followed me for a while, you know I have resting bitch face. So I had posted a picture, and this is what I had said with it was, happily at peace with every lump, bump, and scar this journey has etched into my body. These legs have supported me even when they didn't know and didn't want to. So now I support them with compression. These arms have held and comforted a baby. They cheered on family and friends. They helped embrace a camera to capture moments I want to remember forever. So I decorate them with ink. This face has pretended too long not to appear like it was in pain or hurting. So now I no longer hold back the smile. This is happiness that seemed out of reach for so long.
We're all applauding that. And we're seeing that smile more and more and more. So she's promised to sing for us, but I first want to go to the rest of the panel. Anybody want to say anything before we let Angelique bring it on home? I do want to say to all of you, happy holidays. I don't know what Angelique's going to sing, but this is a non-denominational roundtable. But you can be inspired just by her sharing her gift. You know, Sonya started out the roundtable by saying we all have a purpose inside of us. And that when we flow with that, that's where the magic happens. That's my paraphrase. And whenever Angelique uses her gift, magic happens. My hope for all of you watching, whether it's live or in the recording, that you feel the magic, that you feel the love, because that's what you all deserve. So with that, Angelique.
I apologize in advance. I know that you guys can't hear the music, but you know the song. So feel free to sing along, hum along, make your own musical instruments at home. Record yourself and send it to me too. I love you guys. Chestnuts roasting on an open fire. Jack Frost nipping at your nose, unless you're in Arizona. Yuletide carols being sung by a choir and folks dressed up like Eskimos. Again, not here. Everybody knows a turkey and some mistletoe. They help to make the season bright. Tiny tots with their eyes all aglow will find it hard to sleep tonight. They know that Santa's on his way. He's loaded lots of toys and goodies on his sleigh. And every mother's child is going to spy to see if reindeer really know how to fly. And so I'm offering the simple phrase to kids from 1 to 92. Although it's been said many times, many ways, Merry Christmas to you.
Oh my, you did it again. That's our annual tradition. Every year, Angelique ends our December roundtable with a gift of a song. Thank you, Angelique. We love you. We have so many wonderful things happening in chat. For our newer visitors, you belong. You're not alone. You'll get through this. And I encourage you to connect with any of the panelists that are here. Many of them run different groups that are wonderful to support you in your journey. We'll be here in the new year, 2024 is going to be even more of a great year. We have special shows coming up. Compression will be the topic next month with PGP's own CLT helping us out. I know there's all those acronyms, but Merry Xmas. To all of you, we're out of time. To all, have a good night and be nice, not naughty. Well, be naughty and have fun. See ya.